Blue, you're my first repeat guest. The first person I've had on the podcast more than once. You were also my first episode that I ever launched with. And so it feels like such a gift to get to dance and swim in your radiance and your beauty and your love and your unity. And it feels like we've both lived so many lifetimes since that conversation happened. I know that you've shifted your podcast, taken a pause from your beloved podcast, which I want to talk about, the bittersweetness of that. I know that you're birthing in a whole new chapter of creativity, of making art. What you say is like creating worlds with your hands, which I've seen firsthand. And if all we had experienced since the last podcast was the gift of the time that we had together in Egypt, that would it probably take us 45 podcasts to unpack and to integrate that alone. And so it feels like such a gift just to have time with you, just to communicate with you. But I feel excited to deliver this new medicine of this new chapter. So what we'd love to talk about today is, why isn't everyone dancing? Why isn't everyone making art? And this has been a big chapter for you. I mean, I see your dedication. You're in the studio every single day birthing this new artistic project. So I guess, which came first? Was it the impulse of wanting to start making art with your hands? Or did this project come that allowed you to really prioritize it?
Great question. First and foremost, I am so honored to be your first repeating guest, and I am so honored that I was episode 1 of season 1. I feel so incredibly seen, acknowledged, celebrated, and appreciated in your presence, just for the way that you've placed my voice in something that means everything to you, because you've poured your heart and soul into birthing this project that is the podcast. So thank you so much for believing in me and welcoming me into the podcast. And I'm so touched to be able to be back again. So hello, y'all. If you haven't seen the first episode we did, you better go back and watch it. And it's good to see you again.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll definitely link that episode. And like, you should 100% get to know your story, your journey, how you became a medicine woman, your relationship with medicine, the power that you have, your journey with learning to hear in new ways by your sense of hearing changing on the 3D. So it's a fascinating podcast. It's one of my favorites, and not for nothing, the most popular reel and clip that we've had, well over 1 million views at this point, like 56,000 people who have liked it, tens of thousands of people who have shared it. And it's this beautiful clip of you saying that, like, the more playfulness, the more joy, the more frequency of lightness that we're putting out into the universe, that is what is reflected back to us. And so I'm curious, like, what has shifted in you, and how is that translating into making art?
Art saved me, and has saved me in so many ways, and it's saving me again. And what I mean by that is, I was working corporate. I was working in a 9-to-5 job, 6 days a week. I was working in a cubicle. I would hardly ever see anybody all day. I was sitting, booking flights and making itineraries and cold calling people. And it was just not who I am, but it's how the system being the education system, telling me that I had to get a job in alignment with my major, and the only major that was available was in this category, which actually took me 4 degrees away from what it was that I really wanted to create, which is I wanted to be a host. I wanted to interview brilliant minds. It took me behind the scenes in the world of production, and I ended up in a cubicle working for these men that were barking orders at me all day, and I was completely disconnected from any version of art within me, even though I am so incredibly artistic. I have been since I was a kid, and I lost connection with myself. And it wasn't until I started just to create some sense of humanity back inside of me, I would use my lunch breaks to do like little pencil sketches. And eventually those pencil sketches turned into me posting them online on Facebook at the time. And people were like, wow, these pencil sketches are amazing. Can I commission you to do this? And I was like, wait, what? Someone wants to commission me, aka pay me for making art? It was like $25 for something that took me like 8 hours to do, but I couldn't believe it that I could make money outside of sitting in this cubicle and doing what actually sapped my soul dry of any kind of vitality. And it was something that just kept going and going, to the point that when I was done with work, I would go home and I would pencil sketch right into the early hours of the morning. I'd get a few hours sleep, then I'd go back to work. I couldn't wait to my lunch break. And then I would be doing a little bit more sketches. I would use Snapchat on my iPad, and I would draw whole scenes with my finger on the Snapchat filter and make these like filters by making art. And it was the one area of my life that I felt like I was actually lighting up just a little bit. And it fast forward, there's so many things that happened, but I ended up quitting my job and I handed in my 3 weeks notice. And I remember walking into that office and I said to my bosses, I said, I have to be really real. I have to honor my heart. I'm handing in my 3 weeks notice. And they said, but what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to be an artist. And they straight up laughed at me. They were like, girl, you have no idea how difficult it is to make it out in the world. And we didn't even know you did art. Like, this was like, are you kidding? You're walking away from this, you know, a regular paycheck every 2 weeks, direct deposit into my bank account, just enough to cover my bases. But it kept me trapped also in the same cycle. And there was no way I was going to get above that. So it was just this constant, monotonous, soul-sucking, obligatory energy that I was told from the outside is what success is.
That so many people are trapped in.
So many people.
How many people are just like making just enough money to survive and doing the thing that they think they're supposed to do, and it's not feeding their soul. They're not making art. They don't feel like they're bringing the frequency of heaven to earth, and it is slowly killing us as a species.
Yeah, and I have so much compassion for it, right? I wasn't a mother. I didn't have kids to feed. There was an element that I could take the risk because it was just me and my dog. And so, yes, it was a risk because I was going into the unknown. But what that risk did is it got me out of my comfort zone, recognizing that my comfort zone could potentially slowly be killing me. And I had to get so uncomfortable to the point where I had no money. I had to figure out whether I was going to feed my dog or feed myself. I remember having like a block of moldy cheese in my fridge and some bread, and I would scrape the mold off the outside of the cheese and I would slice it up and I'd put it in that toaster and I would make a grilled cheese that night, and that was my dinner.
It's very English of you.
It's very English. I love a good grilled cheese. And it's called a cheese toasty.
Cheese toasty, that's it.
And I remember making art as a way to the access point for me to start living my life from my design. And long story short, I ended up becoming a pretty successful artist. I was going from pencil sketches to then started painting, and my friend would come over and like, you can do it, you can move into painting. And I started going bigger and bigger, and eventually I started painting lions, big lions, and the lions were teaching me the courage to walk to the beat of my own drum and to recognize it's not going to be the easy path, but it will always be the most rewarding, and you will never look back, I promise. And every time I paint a lion, it reminded me of the strength and the courage that I have within myself. Eventually I started selling my lions all around the world, $5,000 a pop, and it was just like big chakra lions, and I couldn't believe I could make this much money from just doing what I loved. So all day, every day, I was painting, and it invigorated my soul, and I feel like that was truly when my life actually began. Now, that was 10 years ago. So then I got into... And then I became Blue. I changed my name from Charlotte to Blue, and I became the mother of this community space, and it was the Mother Tree, and I was like got this whole invigorated.
It was a physical space called the Mother Tree.
It was a Mother Tree, and it was down in the Palisades, and I birthed this big community space with Azria. Azria ended up leaving. I took it on myself.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I was like the mama of the Mother Tree.
Wow.
And there was people living there, and we were doing events, and then that's when I birthed my podcast, and then my podcast started getting really big. Within 3 years, the podcast had 4 million listeners. It's like super juicy, incredible guests that I always saw as like my inspiration became my friends through the podcast. It got really successful, but I stopped doing art because the life took me into another avenue, and I became Blue, and I became the podcast host, and it wasn't until recently was when if you know anything about astrology, there's a thing in astrology called your progressed moon. And the progressed moon is basically like a lens, the way you see life every 3 years, it shifts signs. So I had gone from Libra, which is outward facing, community, relationships, impact, media, and I have shifted into Scorpio, which is hermit, isolation, the artist, inward, darkness, unconscious mind, taboo, magic, study. It's the Hierophant in the tarot. It's the one that sits in stillness, generates rich inner waters, and teaches others from that place of wholeness. And when that shifted, which is in January of this year, my whole lens shifted. And what's happening is because my sun is in Scorpio, my nature is in Scorpio. I have returned home.
And so now your sun sign is Scorpio, and now your ascendant moon is also
back
in Scorpio. So it feels like
I'm
you're
returning
home to yourself.
So I've returned to the artist.
Oh.
And right at the exact same time as a project that's asking me to spend 9 months birthing a tarot deck, which is 78 original pieces of artwork, writing a book and writing the prayers and writing the descriptions and incorporating the astrology and incorporating the gene keys of how it's all linked together from the hermit mode.
You're incorporating astrology and gene keys into this tarot deck?
Yeah. Yes! It's juicy. Yes! But I've returned back to being the artist.
Wow.
And I realized when I'm making art, anxiety doesn't even exist in my reality. And I truly believe a lot of our anxiety is the root cause of unexpressed creative potential.
Amen. And that the root cause of anxiety could be unexpressed creativity, because energy either creates or it destroys. So if we aren't using that energy to create, it will start to destroy.
It eats us from the inside out.
Yeah.
And how I see the creative process, how it's always been shown it, is it's like a circle. And the creative process drops in from somewhere else. If you read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, she talks about how the creative process is an entity outside of you. And it chooses the person that's the antenna that's ready to receive it. Now, it'll drop in, the idea will. But if you don't give it an outlet, then it will have to go somewhere else. Now, if you allow it to start coming in and giving it an outlet, giving it an expression, what happens is half the circle is receiving it, is cultivating it, is creating it, is doing the drawing, is writing the poem, is singing the song, is dancing the dance. Now, if it's not shared, if it doesn't ever get out in the world, that energy has to turn back on itself, and it creates anxiety. It eats itself from the inside out.
Oh, shit.
So we have to share it for it to complete the cycle. When it gets back to the top, new information, new creative inspiration can drop in and create this beautiful cycle, and it builds in momentum. So if you are sitting at home listening to this podcast and you have drawings upon drawings all stacked up in somewhere that's covered in dust, or home videos that you made, or poems that you've written and no one's ever seen them, and you're riddled with anxiety, this might just be your answer. To share it. The world needs your art. The world needs your creation. And so instead of saying, why would I do this? Why would I share it? Oh my goodness, who's going to want to hear it? Why would I not do this? Because actually it may just be the thing that heals my body.
Wait, that might be the episode. Why isn't everyone sharing their art? Why isn't everyone spreading beauty? Wow. I've never heard that said that way before, that half of the cycle is receiving the download, creating the art, but that the other half of the cycle is sharing it.
You have to share it.
This is what, do you know InQ, the poet InQ? He'll have people write poems, and he said, but a poem is not a poem until it is shared. And so we'll have you write it. Yeah. And have you write it and then share it. And it's like, that's when it's a poem. That's when it is complete.
100%, because the circle is now complete. And now new information, new inspiration, new downloads, new uploads, whatever you want to call it, it can start to come through you because your antenna is strong, and it's saying, I am ready. I am here. My spine is straight. I'm ready to receive the next birthing that wants to come through me.
Yes.
Now, if I go later, I'm not ready yet, oh, I don't want to do this, or I'm too distracted, or my head's full of noise, or I'm riddled with anxiety and I don't want to allow it to come through, then we're not allowing ourselves to fully integrate the gift of what it means to be human, which is recognizing when we were a soul, we didn't have a physical body to be able to create with. We had to have hands. We had to have a physical body and the 5 senses, the 6 senses, the extra senses, to allow ourselves to turn what once was a thought into a physical object. Everything you'll see in reality was once a thought. This chair was once a thought. This table was once a thought. And then somebody used that physical body, their physical incarnation, to create a physical thing from a non-physical thing. That is the gift of being alive. Now, the story that I am not an artist, I am not a creative, I'm just this, I'm just that. We've got to be really careful with the stories we tell ourselves, because they're creating worlds. And ultimately, I truly believe everybody is an artist. Everybody has a voice, everybody has a pair of hands, everybody has a heart, everybody has the ability to create. But sometimes the stories are keeping us trapped from actually creating it. So to come back full circle to your question, art saved me because it brought me home. And that is where I do everything from now. I'm home in my body and in my being. So it doesn't matter if I'm standing in line at TSA at the airport, or I am waiting in line at the DMV and doing what seemingly is monotonous and mundane. The magic has been instilled inside of me. And that is where the magic gets infiltrated into the mundane moments, which creates a mystical life.
What would you say to someone who thinks like, I don't have any artistic abilities? I can't sing. I don't know how to dance. I've never picked up a paintbrush in my whole life. I may be colored with my son, but like they don't feel like they have a story of I'm not artistic. Yes, they might understand philosophically, of course, we are all the hands of God, that everything we do is an act of creation. But what would you say to that person who has that story, I'm not an artist?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's super important to completely detach from the perfectionism and recognize that nobody came out of their mama's womb like being a professional anything. And it's not about the outcome. We're so attached to the outcome. It's got to be a really good painting, otherwise what the fuck am I doing? Or it's got to sound really good, otherwise I'll never sing. Or I've got to look really good when I dance, otherwise I'm never going to dance. This is already stifling you from allowing yourself the gift of the moment.
Yeah.
It's not about the outcome. It's not about what it looks like when you dance. It's not about what it looks like when you draw. It's not about how it sounds when you sing. It's about the fact that you're singing to liberate yourself, not singing to sound good. So the question becomes, why would I not sing when I have everything to sing for? When I have the sun, when I have the stars, when I have the moon, when I have love? Why would I not dance when I have everything to dance for? When I have the sun, when I have the stars, when I have the moon, when I have love? Why would I not? Because when I was a kid, I didn't do it to look good. I did it because the music was moving me. So if going to the park with a tiny little palette of watercolors and looking at life from a different lens, as opposed to the 2D reality of everything we're told in a textbook, to actually recognize the interconnected reality of everything around us, and to pick something that inspires us and to brush a bunch of watercolor onto the paper. It doesn't have to look like a Da Vinci. However, it's the fact that you went to the park with a watercolor and a paintbrush and pen, as opposed to sitting in a dark room with your curtains closed, scrolling on Instagram. And you went to the park and you splashed on a bunch of colors, and for a second, your 5-year-old self gave you a symbolic high five. That's everything. It doesn't matter what happens with the actual art itself.
Yeah, the 5-year-old gave you a high five, and the creative forces, the creative angels, God, creativity itself, like that thing knows that you are awake, that, oh, they can feel and see that antenna. Oh, there's someone who is ready for the next idea, for the next transmission. Because I feel like God is always trying to find ways to seep into the 3D. Like the angels and the inspiration are always trying to find who's awake, who's paying attention. And so like making art feels like a way to say, like, yes, like your antenna's up. I'm ready to receive.
100%. And the way that I see it is like these light bulbs. If you were to look at the earth from a viewpoint when you're outside the stratosphere, and imagine the little lights that go ding, 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 ding. And all of those lights are connected. And if there's somebody over here that chooses to go and make art, or chooses to wake up first thing in the morning and dance to Walking on Sunshine and having the best morning ever with your headphones on and your undies on in front of the mirror doing the air guitar, that light goes ding. And then on the other side of the planet, someone on a completely different continent decides to actually, instead of going and doing this monotonous thing that completely sucks my soul out of through a place of compromise, and allow myself to actually ask myself the question, what would my 5-year-old self be proud of right now? And to take action on that and to create something beautiful, whether it's a piece of art, whether it's a beautiful dish that you make from scratch, and the way that you present it on the plate with a cherry on top and some beautiful hemp heart sprinkles around the outside and a glaze of balsamic, and then you present it and say your prayers into it and deliver it to a loved one. That is art. Yes. The way that you choose to dress yourself in the morning as a complete blank canvas and as the embodiment of the archetype and what your soul is feeling, and you give yourself the permission to live it from the inside out as opposed to how other people will see it, that is art. The way that you choose to make your bed in a meticulous manner that's not completely brushing it over, but tucking the sheets deeply into the side and folding it in a beautiful symmetrical origami of an expression of your bed, that is art. It's not about what you're doing. It's about who you be while you do it that makes you the artist.
Amen. I think about you every time I make my bed, because in our last conversation, you said, sometimes I imagine I'm on a Swedish game show and I put on a timer and I imagine I'm competing against a Swedish person and I'm making my bed and I make it a game. And now every time I make my bed, I think of you. And now I'm going to think about it as an origami art. So, with every new rebirth, with every new iteration of us, there is also a death. So you are transitioning from this Libra phase of your chart into this Scorpio phase of your chart, from this outward, on stage, on the show, on Instagram, where there's a dopamine hit to that. We're tribal humans. We want to be in community. So I can imagine that there is some sadness, some mourning, some grieving, and yet we're always dying all the time. If we delay those deaths or try to delay those deaths, I think they just get harder and more intense. And it feels like I remember a few months ago when we were first collaborating on the studio, you had my calendar on your phone. You're like, this is bringing me anxiety. Like looking at your calendar really stresses me out because my calendar is not a joke. And it's been that way for 13 years. And you said, I don't even know how I'm going to be in 3 months. And that has really stuck with me because I schedule my life 3, 4, 5 months out. And I look at my calendar, I'm like, I want to not know who I'm going to be in 3 months. Yeah. So I guess, can you speak to both, like the grieving process or the death portals that you must have to go through to say goodbye to old you, to make space for the new version of you, and then perhaps weaved into that the dance between Charlotte, your birth name, and Blue, this name that you inherited, were given, chose, came to you, which means beauty, love, and unity, which is what most people know you as Blue, and then the integration of the two.
Ooh. So regarding the death and the old versions of ourselves, we die so many times within this life without actually physically dying. And
if we're doing it right.
if you're doing it right, if you're allowing yourself to face the storm. And there's something that I read recently about bison, and when there's a snowstorm, bison instinctively turn towards, as a herd, they go directly into the storm because they know by facing it, they'll pass the weather quicker.
Oh, wow. That's so good.
So it's just a reminder that lurking thing that you said you would do, that you know is chipping away at your life force energy because it's creating an energy leak in your present moment because you know you've got to do it, but you're trying to procrastinate it. You are literally putting yourself in a position to stay in the storm longer.
Yes.
Be like the bison, face it, turn around and go, oh, and you can see the storm coming and it's going to be cold and maybe we'll lose one along the way and this is going to be tough, but we're going to get out of this way stronger, way more connected as a unit, and we're going to do this sooner than actually avoiding it. And so this is something that really stuck with me because I have 4 planets in Scorpio. It's very death and rebirth. I'm also very Platonic. I have a lot of Pluto in my astrology chart. So it's constant death and rebirth. People call me the art of shape-shifting. Like I have a shapeshift all the time. Like I'm always changing form and my style, and it's because it's just who I am. I am supposed to die and be reborn over and over and over again within my life. And that's also what I invite within other people, specific people really close to me. And what's beautiful about that is quantum growth. And so because it's just who I've been, the death and the rebirth process is actually kind of normal for me now. It's just what I'm used to. And also what it means is that it doesn't allow anything inauthentic to exist for a long period of time once it's been detected. And it also means I can't get away with my own bullshit. There's not this that I know of. an unconscious thing that is constantly looping, that is draining my life force energy, or that is creating triggers where I'm blaming the outside world and keeping myself in a loop. I detect it pretty early on. I have a method of people, situations, containers that I place myself in to get immediate reflections of what it is that I may not see, to integrate it in real time and then become more of myself, because ultimately those unconscious loops hold your power. And I personally came here to play a big game, and I know you did too. And so when you see it, that your power is sitting there, why would you not be like the bison and face the storm? Because you know that you're going to be stronger on the other side. It's not even a knowing, it's just a way of life. It just is. It's just how we operate, or how I operate. And so, yes, there is a death and a rebirth. And simultaneously, when you understand astrology of the Gene Keys is such an incredible tool to know yourself. And when I've started studying my astrology, then I understand the different cycles and the natures of what it is that I'm going through. And then I face it head on like the bison, and then come out a more refined, more invigorated, more aligned version of myself. And that means that I can serve from that place, because I believe that when somebody is a teacher, their wisdom only lands when the words are embodied.
Okay, so I love this. When someone is a teacher, the wisdom only lands when it is embodied.
Yes.
That is so beautiful. And can you say, and you don't have to share specifics, but I'm asking for anyone listening, where you said, I have a method of people and containers and systems that allow me to face the things that might be draining my energy. Mm-hmm. You don't have to give a window into your personal, but could you maybe suggest, if someone was like, oh, I want to speed that process up. I want to be more like the bison. How could I create containers or people or systems in my life that would buttress me in doing that? Because it's scary and hard.
I don't have yes men around me. And what I mean by that is people that just agree with me. Mm-hmm. They're not in my immediate circle. I want to have real. I don't want to have a false sense of harmony.
I want to have real. I don't want to have a false sense of harmony. Woo.
So what I'm asking from the people that are in my immediate field is to give me an unpopular opinion, because I trust the way that they weave life. I trust the way that they see life, and I trust the way that they alchemize their challenges into something beautiful. And I see it over a consistent period of time, so that when they're in my immediate reality and I'm not seeing something and they see something, I trust their strength in their spine to reflect back to me in a compassionate way what it is that they see that I don't see, that is leaking my energy. So, for example, hey, Blue, you said that you would do that thing. I didn't hear back from you for 4 days, and I feel like I'm losing trust in your word, because you said you would do something and you didn't. And I would just like to reflect that to you, because I really want to be able to trust this relationship. For me, wow. Thank you. I don't want that to be a part of my character. I don't want to be somebody that's flaky. I don't want to be somebody that's highly distracted. I just want you to know, first and foremost, it's not personal. And simultaneously, I receive the feedback, and I'm going to adjust myself to be a better person. Those are the kind of relationships that have to be the default. And those kind of people are those that are doing it for themselves, therefore can offer it to somebody else. And so to just have people around me that just goes, oh, and agrees with everything that I say, or like, oh, what do you think of this? And they're thinking, I don't really like that. But it's like, oh, you look amazing. That doesn't work, because how on earth am I going to grow in this environment? I need, and I don't use the word need very often, but I need people in my immediate reality that are going to be honest. I need people in my immediate reality that if something doesn't work for them, that they're going to communicate it with me, as opposed to give me the cold shoulder. And that requires a level of self-mastery around their emotional waters that is what they can offer and contribute into this friendship. So that is, for me, is a nurturing space. That is somewhere that I grow. These are the people that I grow around. These are the people that I evolve around. These are the people that have a seat at my immediate table of my life. Yeah. You are one of those people. Because of the way that you choose to weave in the world, that you can speak what it is that's on your heart, what's on your mind in the moment, rooted in compassion, without creating any more division, but actually birthing intimacy. What is intimacy? Into me you see. What is integrity? That your words and your feelings are matched. High integrity humans, people that allow intimacy, people that weave in truth and integrity, or the closest thing that they can get to truth in their body and their being, and those that are devoted to a path of love. that is a place where I grow.
Mm.
And it's non-negotiable. And I'm actually the most introverted extrovert you will ever meet. I'm not that available. And for a reason. It's called discernment. And for those that are in that space, it is so rich. It is so deep. It is so real. There are no masks. Our humanness can breathe. Our shadow is welcome as much as our beauty and our light and our creativity and our unity and our love. All of it is welcome on the table. We take radical ownership of our experience and we celebrate the fuck out of each other.
I'm just imagining circles of people around the world finding their version of that, finding the frequency of that feels safe and nurturing and celebratory for all parts of them to be seen and called out with love so that we can ascend together.
And I like to say called in.
Yeah.
You know, we're calling you home.
Yeah.
And there's, I don't know exactly what tribe it is, but there is an African tribe that have a tradition that when a mama is pregnant, she goes out into the forest and she gets quiet and she listens, and the birth song for that child and that soul comes through, and she starts singing it until she really understands the song. Then she goes back to the tribe. She teaches the entire tribe that song of the child, the song of the soul of this baby. When this baby is born, the tribe come together and sing this song to this child. And this child is birthed into the world as this is the entrance to the earth plane. This is your song. So if at any point as that child gets older and loses their way, or goes into negative patterns, or creates self-destructive ways of being, or starts harming or hurting other people, instead of outcasting that child or that being or that soul, instead of demonizing that soul, instead of telling that soul is wrong and riddling that soul with shame, they bring that soul or that human back into the tribe and they sing them the song. They bring them home. Come home. And they're the kind of humans I want to have around that bring me home when I've lost my way. Because to be human is so challenging at times. It is so discombobulating. It is painful. It is grief-stricken. It's also stunningly beautiful. It's where beauty and chaos sit side by side, even seemingly in the same breath. But can we have humans around us that sing to us to bring us home when we've lost our way? That's the medicine that I want, need, and set as the default in my life. And if it's not that, it's nothing. And can I be okay being alone until that comes along? Can I be okay having my own back and being the medicine man, the medicine woman, the shaman, the healer of my own experience until that is met because I've given it to myself?
Can you speak to the masculine, feminine inside of yourself? Like, this is a journey that I'm very much on right now. It's like I won't say my number one, but like a very high priority over the next, however long it takes to really heal my father wound, heal my relationship with the masculine, and in so doing, like, find a way to hold myself, like to find that loving father figure inside of myself, to hold space for the feminine inside of me, and to really create that holy grail of that beautiful match of masculine and feminine inside. And so what you just said, like, am I okay being alone? Am I okay being the medicine man and medicine woman? Like, can you speak to your journey of your masculine and feminine and what that has felt like? What's been challenging, what you've learned, what you desire?
You ask the best questions, Emily. You're such an incredible podcast host. I love you. Again, it's been a journey, and I started my path being very strongly in my masculine. I had no connection to my feminine energy whatsoever. Then the pendulum swung when I went from working in an office and just doing all the logistics all day, every day, and I went fully into my artist. And I thought that to be spiritual meant to make every decision from my heart. And actually, that can create problems. And what I mean by that is that in this moment, my heart feels excited. So I make a decision, but then recognizing true character is to stay with that decision long after the moment has passed, long after the heat or the excitement of the moment has passed. That's what true character is. And if I keep making all the decisions from my heart, it's impulsive, it's hasty, it's wishful, it's here, it's present. But then am I following through later when the moment has actually passed? Because there needs to be a healthy amount of logic. There needs to be a decision made, and this is the balance card in tarot, where the head, where the brain and the heart are balanced on the scales. And then you make a decision from that place. The awakened state, the pineal gland, sits in a beautiful center point between your left and your right lobes of the brain. This is what it means to be an awakened being, is when you have balanced your masculine and your feminine within yourself. And so when I realized I was making all my decisions from my heart and I wasn't integrating a lot of logic in, and I was kind of flaky and I wasn't really following through. And I was like, my character was not super strong because I wasn't following through with what was exciting in the moment. And then when it came to a month later, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. So I devoted a period of my life to Blue Daddy. I said it was Blue Daddy season. And I was working on the Emperor card in the tarot at the time. And the Emperor is the systems, the logistics, the finances, the orchestration of creating the container, the space, the home, so that the life force energy, the feminine, can thrive within it. And in the Gene Keys, it talks about the masculine and the feminine energy being similar to looking at a cell under a microscope. You will see that the cell has a cell membrane. That's the masculine. And then it has the life force energy that vibrates the cell, that keeps it alive, is the feminine. Now, if you just had the cell membrane, you just had the masculine, it would be a dead cell because there would be no life in it. Now, if you just had the feminine, it would be a dead cell because there's nothing containing it. So you need to have a healthy balance of the both to have a healthy cell. Now, we're 75 trillion cells. Every single cell in my body is happy because I've integrated my masculine, my feminine, my go and my flow, my structure and my life force energy, the creative, intuitive wisdom partnered with the structure that is needed for any magic to be birthed in the 3D. How do we have this podcast? How are you listening to this podcast right now? Okay, well, Emily went out of her way, sought after a studio. Then she hired a production company. She got all of the equipment. She emailed the guests. She set times. They showed up on time. This is the masculine energy that is required to set the container. Now, once the container is set, Emily shows up within the podcast and says a prayer. And she doesn't speak from a script. She doesn't say something that was pre-planned. You drop in, you take a breath, and you allow whatever wants to flow out your mouth in complete trust that that's the medicine of the moment. That is the feminine principle. What happens on your podcast, you have no idea. The second that you start rolling the cameras, it is in Goddess's hands. It is in the universe's hands, but you set the container, you set the intention, you set the space, you smudged it, you got clear on your why with your guest, you had the guest fill out an intake form of talking about all of it is what it is that they offer. You set the space so the magic can flow. So this is a living example of the integrated masculine and feminine within you and an acknowledgement that it's already happening. But for anything to be birthed into the 3D, any magic, any intuition, any divine intervention, it has to have the structure to be shared with the world.
I love taking the masculine and feminine out of the gender and really looking at it at the cellular level. Zach Bush was on the other day and he was talking about it at the atomic level, that even inside of the atom, that there are these cubes, that it's just a cube, cubes on cubes on cubes, that is the structure, and then is the light. It is the energy that then animates those cubes. So it's happening on the cellular level, on the atomic level, it's happening in the 3D level, and certainly it's happening on the cosmic level. And so I think to take gender out of it, that it's so much bigger than male or female, than having a penis or a pussy. It's like, this is the very eros and magnetism that creates all life. And so to me, it just feels like such a beautiful, spiritual, valuable pursuit and exploration. Like, where am I creating container? Where am I flowing? Where could I use more of one or the other, irrespective of gender? And even we learned this from our mutual friend Robert Edward Grant, is that inside it's not just the pineal gland, but there's also the pituitary gland, and one looks like a penis and the other looks like a womb. And if you get this energy going at the right point, they can both like ejaculate.
Yeah, so you can fuck yourself open to God.
Yes, in your brain, have a braingasm.
And then it literally creates a hole in the top of your skull and opens up to a higher dimension of consciousness.
It's wild.
Read the Magdalene manuscript.
So let's go there.
You want to go there, sweetheart? It's Scorpio season.
Do I want to go into those Magdalene manuscripts? You betcha. So the Magdalene manuscripts specifically have been a huge part of my awakening process in the last 3 years.
I can imagine.
And has been a beautiful transmission. My partner Adam would read them to me as I would fall asleep, like every night for 10 months. And even though for years I couldn't tell you,
That's so cute. We love you, Adam.
we love you, Adam. Like, and so even though I couldn't tell you intellectually and still might not be able to speak that intelligently about it, but like the codes went in, the transmission went into the cells, the activation started happening, even though I couldn't necessarily understand them. And perhaps in God Goddess's infinitely intelligent way, I think this knowledge needed to supersede my intellect. I think it needed to go right into my cells in order for me to really be able to receive it. But so can you talk to me about your journey with Magdalene consciousness, which some would argue is the feminine form of Christ consciousness, and that we really need both Christ consciousness and Magdalene consciousness happening inside of us and on the planet to really activate us into the next iteration of the species. But what's been your journey with Mary Magdalene?
I was reading the Magdalene manuscript for the second time not too long ago, and I was in the bath at the time with my red light on, and I'm reading the book, and just had a moment of being like, okay, hold on. I've been intuitively guided to go to these sacred sites that they are talking about in the book from Malta. I'm half Maltese. I went to Malta with Reggie and Matthias. If you know anything about Matthias de Stefano, you'll know that every single waking moment with that man is pure magic. And I got to go back to where my ancestors, my lineage is from on my father's side, and go to Malta, and it was mentioned in the book. And then it was like, then to Glastonbury, to the Tor, and I met Richard Rudd at dawn at Glastonbury.
Really? You just happened to run into him?
The first time I ever met him in person, we had been coordinating over online and we'd done a couple of podcasts, but the first time I ever actually met him in person was on the winter solstice at 6 o'clock in the morning, as the sun was about to rise at the Glastonbury Tor, where the masculine and the feminine lines of the earth meet.
What?
Yes. And we had a tea ceremony.
It was this past winter solstice?
It was 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the first time I ever met him. Richard Rudd, by the way, is the founder and the creator of the Gene Keys. If you're not familiar with the Gene Keys, that is a living transmission that will single-handedly change your entire life if you give yourself the grace of getting into it. Oh my goodness. That's a whole podcast in itself. So it then went to the Glastonbury, taught multiple times, bathed in the white springs of the Magdalene White Springs in the cave while singing these songs of Magdalene, like bathing naked under the ground, under the Tor, in this most beautiful, sacred, cold, freezing cold water.
Whoa, so what's a Tor, and why are these baths sacred?
So the Tor it's like I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's just a structure. It's a very old structure that is on top of a mountain that is very old, and it's where the masculine and the feminine lines, energetic lines of the planet meet, right on that spot where the Tor is. And it's on this hill. Now, under this hill is the White Magdalene Springs, and it's very connected to the Magdalene lineage, talking about it in the Magdalene manuscript. Now, it's gone from Malta to the Glastonbury Tor to bathing in those springs and drinking those waters and saying a prayer and an offering, to then to Egypt, which is exactly the pilgrimage I have been on over the last year. Unbeknown to this book, unbeknown to the Magdalene path and the lineage, but intuitively life has guided me into these places, and I have gone through very significant activations in each place. Now, I have learned that when you om or sing in a sacred site, your voice acts as a portal, embedding the frequency of that space into your voice, so that even when you sing in Topanga, California, and you have attuned your voice to the frequency of these sacred sites, those sites come with you every time you open your voice.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I needed to hear that more than you know. And it feels very true.
And it's very real. It adds a richness and a texture and a frequency to your voice that starts to heal.
Yes.
And so these people don't have to go to these places, but if you have embodied that essence through intentionally singing in these places, and this is why a lot of these sacred sites, they don't let you sing, because it's that powerful. This is when you can utilize your voice as a portal. Now, not drifting too far away from the Magdalene manuscript. However, there has been an uncanny parallel that has happened in my life where I have been guided by something greater than me into these places to activate this in my DNA, to remember, then to utilize media as medicine, to podcast, to have conversations, to stand on stage from a place of embodied, activated frequency that is shared. Now, our voice is our soul expressed outside of our body. This is when we sing, it's our soul outside of ourselves. And this is why there's so much power in it. This is why I believe everyone, no matter what the story is around how you sing or what tone it's in, it doesn't matter. It's about the liberation of your being to be able to sing and share your soul with the world. And when I'm reading this book and I'm seeing these points, and I know that I've been through these points myself, it just starts me on a deeper inquiry of what got lost along the way. Why is Mary Magdalene depicted as a whore in the story of Christ in the Bible? This crushes my soul. A woman that has integrated her sacred sensuality, recognizing every single person on this planet, A, came from a woman, B, orgasm is the place of creation, is the heightened state of manifestation, is the heightened state of consciousness, is the opportunity to initiate Jesus Christ into Christ consciousness through the integration of the masculine and the feminine within himself, and through the sacred union into activating his car body to a place of light so that he could transcend physical form and return to this earth to remind all of us of Christ consciousness. Why is she depicted as a whore? It hurts my soul. It crushes me on a level of being a woman in this life that is connected to nature, that is connected to her sensuality, that is connected to her sisters, that is connected to her voice, that is connected to God and the goddess. Why is she a whore? This is what is killing this planet, because we have forgotten how to listen to her. And not just women, but the her within all of us.
Yes. The her within all of us.
The her
feminine
within all of us. And so it's taken me on a journey to understand, where have I neglected the her within myself? Where have I shamed myself? Where have I called myself a witch that needs to be outcasted? Where have I silenced my voice because I'm afraid of being too much? Where have I shut down my sexuality because it's not safe? Where have I told myself that magic isn't real and to get my head out of the clouds? This is all a part of me that has got lost in the story that says that she is a whore. And how can I use my life as a resurrection of all of the women that have been, of the Joan of Arc that sits around my neck, of the Ankh that is the integration of the yoni and the phallus together, where the Christian church did not take out the yoni and make it completely phallus. The yoni is integrated in the Ankh because it's the divine balance of the masculine and the feminine, the sacred principles, the Yeshua and the Magdalene consciousness that accesses us into a higher state of being for humanity. I want the real, and I want it for myself, and I want it for my children, and I want it for my brothers, and I want it for my sisters, and I want it for my family, and I want it for the future generations, and I want it for all sentient life. And I don't know what the truth is. I don't always know what the truth is, but what Ichiro once said to me is, I don't know what the truth is, but I know what love feels like, and I follow that every single day. And to be honest, completely disintegrating the feminine within ourselves on this planet and our relationship to Mother Earth and our relationship to the feminine of the past is not love to me.
It is not love.
So I'm just following it every single day of what love actually is. And I'm getting closer and closer to what feels like vibrational alignment and truth in my being from an integrated place of wholeness. And I am devoted to sharing from that place.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you have done on yourself to be able to channel that much power, that much wisdom, that much beauty, that much truth in such a poetic and concentrated amount of time. I was just on our dear friend Allie's podcast, and interestingly, I really went to church and I got on my pulpit and I was talking about Mary Magdalene, and she said, I wish that the whole world could hear that. And right now I feel the same. I wish that like billions and billions of people could hear that sermon that you just gave. So I'll ask you what she asked me a few hours ago. What do you think would change on planet Earth if all 8 billion people could hear and at least receive that transmission? They don't have to agree with it. They don't have to act on it. But what would happen if you feel like billions of people could remember the divine feminine inside of them and at least have access to the knowledge that she has been forcibly and purposefully removed from our stories and from our history?
Mm-hmm. I think that we would have a more compassionate world that realizes that how you hurt another is how you hurt yourself. And that level of empathy comes from our gut, comes from our intuition, comes from our feeling. Now, for somebody to hurt another person, they have to be very disconnected from their ability to feel. And this is what we're seeing with the wars on the planet. And once our empathy is activated, it's not an easy path to feel, because you start to feel the pain of the planet. You start to feel the consequences of your actions. But it also means that you start to live a more aligned, loving and heart-centered life. So it would mean that the world became more feeling. And then we would realize that how I hurt another is how I hurt myself. How I do unto neighbor is how I do to myself. And we would stop hurting people. We would actually start to create more healing in our wake than we do create pain. And we would actually start birthing a new epoch of humanity. I believe that.
I don't see how it doesn't happen. Like, I don't see how we reclaim and herald the divine feminine as much as the divine masculine, and it couldn't create a new epoch of humanity, because we've seen for ourselves what that magic can do in our own bodies, in our own relationships, in our own sexuality, in our own manifestation practices. And that's just one person. You start to get many people accessing that magic with that unity inside of themselves, and you create a bigger antenna. The prayers get stronger, the downloads get clearer. And this is why this vision of and I think that's why I've been so guided over the last 3 years to help people remember that they can use the sexual energy to manifest, that they can use the most creative force on the planet, not just to call in a new car or whatever, but actually like birth the new earth that our hearts know is possible, as our friend Charles Eisenstein says. And I think it will take that. I think it will take the reclamation of that pleasure, the reclamation of the divine feminine, and that balancing between the two. Also, speaking of Charles, he says we need to stop thinking of the earth as our mother and start thinking of her as our lover. So that it's actually a reciprocal relationship rather than this mother that will just provide for us indefinitely. Isn't that amazing? But a lover, where we want to take care of and nurture and offer and yes, receive, but that it is a relationship of reciprocity.
It's such a beautiful quote, because we take from our mother. We are annoyed by our mother. We have not checked in on how our mother's doing. We take our mother for granted. We are annoyed by our mother. We're embarrassed by our mother. There's a lot of beauty within our mothers too, but our mothers is the most complex relationship that exists between a child and a mother. It is so deep, it's so multifaceted and multi-layered. But as a lover, we give. I mean, everybody's different within their loverships. However, a healthy relationship would be that we give and we listen and we honor and we create a sacred space for, and we bathe in and we become intoxicated by. That's such a beautiful way of shifting it. Instead of Mother Earth, it's Lover Earth.
Lover Earth. Isn't that great?
Oh, I want to get all up in that moss wall right now. I want to motorboat that moss wall. Yes. Are you kidding me?
Yes, let's go to sacred sexual rituals in the forest.
Give me some of that moss in my face, y'all.
Give me an oak tree.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And she's going to be fine. It's us that I'm worried about.
Thank you. Yeah.
She's going to be fine. Matthias once said, Matthias has some brilliant lines, and I want to make a whole t-shirt line of things that Matthias says. Matthias said, humans are like the pubic lice of Earth.
Oh, God. That's horrifying and probably true.
Serves a purpose, but annoying as fuck.
And she might shake us off pretty soon if we don't learn to be a better lover.
Exactly. You'll just shave that shit off, yo. Like, bye.
I did it to the dinosaurs. I can do it to you too.
100%. 100%. She's good. She regenerates.
Yes, she has a whole mycelial network that will decompose our bones and use it for something else.
100%.
Yeah.
We, on the other hand, sweet baby Jesus, say your prayers. We're doing good. Ultimately, we're eternal beings, and that's the beautiful thing about our souls. And simultaneously, this life is precious.
Yeah, the human experience is very coveted among other species. And I think that there can be beauty even in the impending danger, right? That like the louder the alarm bells start to ring, the more people will wake up and the more magic may happen as a result of it, because humans won't really change unless the alarm gets loud. So we have no idea what untold magic, what untapped resources are waiting for us once more people are working towards a common goal of up-leveling the species.
And this is why I love the fact that you and I share a studio for the podcast. It comes down to a microcosm moment of the fact that just because my season now has come to an end, or like a close for season 3, and the fact that the podcast set is being used and you're bringing on all of these incredible guests, because it's not about any kind of competition. It's about the fact that there are more heart-led, heart-centered voices out into the world creating content to replace media as medicine so that we can, as a family, spread a message from those that are embodying their wisdom. I believe you're embodying everything that you talk about. Right before this episode, you're sitting out there meditating and connecting in with your intentions right in front of the fire, the cutest little nugget ever. You are the embodiment of everything that is that you share. And so can we celebrate the people that are doing such similar things to us in the world, recognizing we are a voice and a chorus of humans, that this revolution, this new epoch, this way of actually integrating the masculine and the feminine, allowing ourselves to access our empathy, to recognize the impact of our actions as a unit. Can we do this together to shift this revolution into a place of love? Because it's going to take all of us.
Yes.
So we've got to empower the people around us. Otherwise, we're missing the point again.
And I feel like you created such a beautiful living example of that and helped to curate a group of people that are living, breathing examples of that on this trip that we just had the amazing fortune of experiencing in Egypt together. So at the time of this recording, that was just a few weeks ago, and the amazing Robert Edward Grant has spent so much time in Egypt. He has discovered new tombs inside of the Great Pyramid based on Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. And he enlisted you and our friend Andre to help to curate this community. And first of all, I felt so outrageously honored to be invited and included. I was so excited. I don't know if I've told you this story, but I was reading The Raw Contact, which is like a channeled text. It's a recording of a conversation of a channeled text. And at the moment that they got to Egypt and they were asking about the pyramids and what are they for? What is this technology? Why do they exist? I get a text message from Robert saying, hey, do you want to come to Egypt in December? And I was like, well, if that's not a sign,
That's amazing.
I guess I need to go to Egypt and figure out why the pyramid, what's happening with the technology in the pyramids. And I wanted to go to Egypt anyway. I've been once before, but it was long before I had read the Magdalene manuscripts, long before I felt like I had such a deep personal relationship with Isis. So for me, it felt like an opportunity, for no other reason, to go and say thank you. Like, thank you for the extraordinary amount of gifts that you have bestowed onto me over the last 3 years. And then icing on the cake, to get to spend time with you, to get to spend time with Matthias, to get to spend time with Zach and Andre, all these amazing humans. But what happened there, like the frequency that we created through our song, through our collaboration, through our prayers, through our presence, through our intentions, really did feel like at moments we were living the frequency of heaven on earth. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I'll pause there. There's stories and things I'd love to share, but I would love to know, what was that trip like for you? What was it like to be such a part of the inception and creation of it? And then what was if there's a story or something you'd love to share or integrate, I would love to hear anything about your experience.
I'm still integrating it. I think I'll be integrating it for the rest of my life.
Yep. Years, decades.
I have so much appreciation and gratitude for Egypt welcoming us in during that time, and for the privilege of us being able to go into those sacred sites. And the curation of that experience it was us, 6 months ago was when the first sort of seed was planted for this trip. And I am connected with some incredibly heart-centered, like that's the number one. That is the number one, is the heart-centered humans. That's the prerequisite for choosing anybody to come on this trip, was that it's the heart that is the most important thing. It doesn't matter how many followers they have. It doesn't matter what they've created. It doesn't matter what books they've written. It doesn't matter about any of that stuff. Are they leading with their heart? And that was the number one prerequisite. And the request for the trip was that Robert has birthed an application called Orion. And it is the first quantum end-to-end encrypted app. Now, I know that when we open up WhatsApp, it says end-to-end encrypted. It's not, actually. How did WhatsApp make money? Well, there's no ads. You don't pay for it. Where's that money coming from? Well, they sell your data. One person's data is worth $27,000 for 1 year. For big tech companies to pinpoint an entire profile around you that knows you better than you do, for the algorithm to target you through consumerism. So we don't have data sovereignty on any of these apps. We are constantly being monitored, clocked, profiled, and algorithmed. and so what Robert has done, he's a genius. This man is a genius, and he has created a solution to one of our biggest data issues that exist. He created an app called Orion, where you own 100% of your own data. Nothing is ever sold from a third party, and it's genuinely quantum end-to-end encrypted. So no third party can hack your information or sell your information. You own everything that you ever create on Instagram. You don't own any of the things that you post online. Like, it's not your content. You say it's my Instagram.
They can
it's
take
actually
it away.
Not your Instagram. Everything is owned by Instagram.
They can shut that shit down anytime they want.
Yep, exactly. And the terms and agreements, when was the last time you read one of those terms and conditions?
Zero times.
Yeah, but you say accept, right?
Yep.
You're basically selling everything that you own. And when it comes to data. So Robert presented to me and Andre, I've created this solution. It's called Orion, and I would like to bring a group of humans together to the throat chakra, which is the different chakras around the world. Egypt is the throat chakra of the planet. To the throat chakra, which is about freeing your voice around utilizing how we all communicate these days, which is through social media, which is through these online apps. This is through our cell phones. And I would like to empower a bunch of creators, online creators, into understanding what's going on with our data, shifting them over to this app, and then activating and freeing our voice in the throat chakra of the planet. And I would like for you, Blue and Andre, to create the humans together to create the family scape of this experience. And so the prerequisite was for us, heart-centered humans, leaders, for him, a certain amount of following. So it was a series of creators. It was content creators that we had brought together. And so Andre and I got to be sort of like the vibe check police. It was like, what are you bringing to the table? Do you see the world from a place of what can I contribute as opposed to what can I get? Are you a contributor, not an extractor? Are you connected with your own heart and your own unique signature? And are you embodied in what it is that you teach? And so for us, it was super clear. It was just like, we made this list, and we got a final list down. And it was like, these are the humans that feel like soul family, that feel like home in physical form. And the blessing and the gift to be able to curate something that felt like a solution to one of the biggest issues that we don't even really fully know about, but is a very real thing. And with the rise of AI, it's coming in so strong. We're being replaced right now. Creators can actually be replaced by AI bots.
Yeah,
And
I'm not sure that people know this, but Zoom, which we're all on all the time for work, now in their terms and conditions, they own any of your proprietary
facial recognition.
Well, yes, face, but also if I teach my proprietary knowledge, so there are things that I teach that in Ziva that only I offer to like students who have paid, like that means proprietary, right? And so now they have my image, and if I have taught a course on Zoom, they now have access to that proprietary information, so they can fully make an AI Emily and teach this stuff and do whatever they want with it. So anyone who is running their business on Zoom and charging money, that is their lifeblood, that is paying for their mortgage and their family and their groceries, that now Zoom owns that now. So it's a time that we honestly can't even quite comprehend of what we're entering into.
Yeah.
And I know that Robert feels very passionately about specifically people in the wellness space and in the healing spaces, like giving them voices as well, because he feels like we will be potentially, silenced the most.
It's all written there. It's all available for us to actually look into it. It's just that we don't want to read 27 pages of terms and conditions. We just press accept. And so I think that it's moving faster than we can even catch up with.
Sure.
And I've learned about this stuff because I've sat in a boardroom with Robert multiple times and learned about what it is that he's creating. And so I love to be a part of something that feels like a solution. And I think that, we can know this stuff at home, but we don't have the money to invest in these big tech companies that create the solution. It's like, well, what can I do? But then when I can actually be a part of a solution, the fact that Robert has invested so much of his own money into creating a solution and then turning to me and Andre and saying, I believe in you two, and I know that you're connected with heart-centered leaders that could potentially help us with this shift into Orion. He's not trying to be the next Instagram. He's just trying to create a practical solution for a lot of us that genuinely care about our data.
Yeah, and also like no ads and no bots. So like how amazing to have a whole platform with no advertising and no bots. So like that feels exciting just from a user standpoint. Even if you don't care that much about privacy, it's just going to be a better experience.
Right, exactly. And so they're running through the beta rounds right now, and they're getting the bugs out and making sure that it's working seamlessly. But that was the intention of the trip, why we were going there. And then also in the same breath, there was a sensitivity with everything that's happening with Israel and Palestine and that part of the world, and Egypt being merely 200 miles away from the Gaza Strip. So there was, this was planned way before any of this broke out on October 7th. And so it was a very sensitive time to go. And the trip had been planned, everything had been paid for way before. And so we were constantly in the listening of the refinement down to the point of, is this the time to go? And we ended up deciding to go. And we had a brother on the trip, Spencer, who is connected with one of the only organizations, GEM, that were actually getting aid trucks into Gaza at the time. And so through the platforms within the group and sharing what Spencer's organization was doing, we managed to raise, after the end of that trip, $40,000 to actually send many trucks filled of water and aid and blankets into Gaza with what we had received from that experience. And so it's so important not to just go to these places and just extract our experience, but to also pay it forward and to be extremely empathetic and mindful of the sensitivity of that area of the world right now. So there was a lot for me to be navigating as a very feeling woman that feels the mother's cries, that feels the women, that feels the hostages, that feels what's going on in that part of the world, and simultaneously orchestrating this trip and tuning in with these deeply sensitive humans that are also feeling the sensitivity of the timing and the group and the orchestration, and having these conversations behind the scenes, many Zoom meetings to really distill and get to the essence of why we're doing this, how are we playing it forward, and how can we honor this space as much as possible. And once the green light was that we were going, then there was like a full surrender to the prayer of what this could be. And that led us into this experience of going to Egypt. And honestly, it was one of the most powerful, impactful weeks of my entire life. I was actually there for 2 weeks. And I went a week before to be with Matthias. And
just for anyone who doesn't know, Matthias DeStefano is an amazing human, one of Blue's besties, and also has I don't know if you would call it like a perfect memory, but he remembers all of his incarnations all the way back to Atlantis. And when I asked him, because he knows a lot about a lot of different cultures, I said, how much of your knowledge is like left brain learned academic and how much of your knowledge is learned from experience from you having been there? And he said it's about 50-50. Which is just fascinating. I've never met anyone like him. He has 5 seasons of a television show where people just follow him around on Gaia, follow him around, like being guided by spirit, doing activations, activating different parts of the planet, like a fascinating human. So when you say you went to be with Matthias, it wasn't just your run of the mill human.
I don't usually hang out with individuals that don't have an extra bit of weirdness and flair and kind of crazy. I love the scribbling outside of the lines, and I'd say Matthias definitely scribbles way outside the lines in the best way. And I went to Egypt the week before with Lily and Reggie and Matthias, and we all got to have some time on the Nile in Aswan at the Isis temple, baptizing ourselves on the original Isis temple steps in the water, and to make offerings to the land and to sing and be in ceremony and prayer. We sat on the River Nile and sat with an acacia tree in an acacia tree ceremony, which is the tree of Isis, which is like the Egyptian ayahuasca, on the Nile, like overnight, and sitting around a fire. And it was a homecoming in all of the ways. Every part of myself that was disconnected with my nature, with my essence, every part of myself that was tired and weary, every part of myself that was operating in a story, it just got churned up to the surface and transmuted in the fire of transmutation on the Nile in those sacred waters. And honestly, like, I felt like I was inside of some sort of like mystical text and postcard all wrapped into one that was just like, this is my life right now. And simultaneously the gut-wrenching grief of the state of this planet and what we are doing in that part of the world and many different parts of the world. In fact, 75% of the world that is being extracted from through the desire of consumerism, and the other 25% of the world that lives so abundantly, but is all through extracting from these other countries. And so feeling this like push and pull dynamic with what the systems have set up in place, feeling this destruction of the old and into the new, while simultaneously within myself being access to the mysteries and the magic and the profound experience of being alive and being human. It is a weird experience, the human experience, HUE, all colors of the rainbow, all colors and flavors of the grief and the grace. And to be in Egypt and to be surrounded by such magical humans. And that was the week before even our retreat. Oof. There was so much that happened.
And I just want to underline HUE, human, like that you're highlighting the many different colors of humans. And I want to circle back to this, but last night I got to interview a channel and an entity that came through that was speaking very much your language, and speaking very much about the importance that all of us play our part, that all of us make our brushstroke on the canvas. And so the fact that you're calling us humans HUE just feels like I want to underscore that. Okay, so that was the week before. And I want to, from what you've shared, is that was also a homecoming and a reclamation of your birth name with Blue, that there was a unity happening there inside of this identity that has been outward, and you coming home to this inward of this artist, of you making more art internally. So I'm celebrating that journey. And then that, I can't even believe that all happened before we went into our portal.
Week. Before the week. So here's the thing. What happened in the, I haven't actually talked about this. Fuck it, throw it out to the wind, you know. Here we go. You heard it here first, folks. So in the acacia ceremony, there was a shaman in the ceremony, and afterwards she pulled me to the side and she said, Blue, I saw something on your back, and it's like an open portal, and it's like open to energies, and I don't really fully understand it, but I had to tell you. And at the time that she told me that, I was extremely drained. I would look in the mirror and I wouldn't recognize myself. I was feeling like the vitality had been sucked out of me, and I didn't really fully understand what was going on. So it made a lot of sense, and when she shared this with me, I got really emotional, and I was like, oh my goodness, I resonate with that. So I told Reggie, and Reggie has an incredible woman that does remote clearings, and she goes into your field and sees what's happening. And so I called her and I said, listen, I'd love to do this session with you. I kind of want it to be like an ASAP kind of thing. I don't know what's going on.
ASAP.
Like if you could, and she's like, I can do it tonight while you're asleep. I can do a remote clearing.
That's
and I'll
my
leave
kind
you a
of
voice
healing
note.
while you're sleeping.
It was amazing.
Yes.
I woke up to a 15-minute long voice note of a laundry list of energies that had attached themselves to me. And she's like, girl, listen, this is what happens in your line of work. You go deep into the shamanic space, and then you blast yourself out to hundreds of thousands of people online, and there is no protection mechanism. There is no official clearing. There is no ritual that you have to protect yourself when you're blasting yourself out to the ethers, like blasting yourself out in the ethers and then sharing yourself online like this. So there has to be some degree of protection. Like, what do you know, otherwise you're going to attach, the things are going to attach to you. She did say to you, The person is right that saw this. There is an open portal on your back. There are dark, and there's been energies that have attached to you that think that you are the light, not just a light. And they are sucking and draining your life force energy. And it is a lot to do with how exposed you are on social media. There are people online that don't like you. And they don't realize what it is that they're doing. But when people send negative thoughts towards someone, it is black magic. And this, I believe, why there's such a thing called the 27 Club, or when a lot of artists, big artists, end their life or they die by the age of 27. Because what happens, I think, is that when you become a celebrity, when you are really exposed in the world, you are exposing yourself to all sorts of projections, all sorts of humans, diehard fans and people that want you dead, and everything in between. The bigger the audience, the more people, the more projections. Now, as sensitive beings, they're artists, they're sensitive beings. To be an artist means to feel. To feel means you're sensitive. To be sensitive means you're vulnerable. Now, when you're exposing yourself to that many people and you don't have any clearing protection mechanisms, you're standing on stage in front of 100,000 people and singing on New Year's Eve, that is a lot of energy on a sensitive body. Now, if you don't know the difference between what's yours and what's others, if you don't have clearing rituals, if you don't know how to smudge yourself or clear yourself, then what can happen is a lot of noise. It's like a beehive, like constantly. Now, what's the best way to quiet the noise? Take drugs. Get yourself out for just a moment, out of your head.
Numb it, quiet
Numb
it,
it, shut it down. Now, what happens is, over a prolonged period of time, people end up dying from overdose. We see this all the time in celebrity culture because it's sensitive beings that don't know how to navigate the projections of the world. They get demonized by the world. They get death threats. They have stalkers. It's not fun. And yet, weirdly, we all want to be them, or not all of us, but we idolize these people and we think that that's what it means to be successful. The most unhappy people are the ones that have the biggest fame. Some of the people that I've met, not all of them, but some of them. And when she shared with this stuff with me, it made so much sense. I was like, okay, all right, I totally get that. So she did a clearing. And the next day I woke up, I felt so much better. By that evening, I started getting a migraine. I lost my vision in my left eye. My right side of the brain was like for like 8 hours. It was so much pain. The next day, I recovered from that migraine. I lost my vision in my right eye, and my left side of the brain was like so painful for 8 hours. What? After that, I was like reset.
Wow.
It was so powerful.
Like a full rewiring.
I felt like a full rewiring happened in my brain. And then she said I could clear whatever I could clear. Like, I did a lot of like energy work around it. And she also said that she would teach me how to do this for myself, so that I had this tool in my tool belt as somebody that does go into the sensitivity but also exposes myself in a very vulnerable way. My content isn't talking about the different shades of lip gloss that we should try on. Okay.
But if you I would listen to that, if you just so you know.
Get ready with me. So we have peach and we have magenta, and these are the colors of my lip gloss. I'm talking about
these
like
are human.
Yeah,
not the hues of lip gloss. We're talking about the hue of man.
Exactly. No shade about makeup influencers, by the way. We love it. There's a place for it. Me personally, my content is, this is my heart outside of my body. Take it or leave it. It's the most real and true for me. Demonize me all you want. Project onto me all you want. But as long as I can rest in bed at night and say, I told the truth, that's all I need to do for myself. And so that's the nature of my content. It's very vulnerable. It's very exposing. And so there has to be some degree of understanding and education around what it means to purify or cleanse myself. So then I came to Matthias and I'm like, listen, I feel like I'm with you during this time for a very specific reason. And I feel like there's stuff going on, Matthias, and I'm going to need you and your ability to see to just tune in with me. And we were joking around about it. We were like, help me with my demons. I got my demons. I need help.
Jesus, help me.
Yeah, Jesus, help me. I've got demons. No, I didn't actually think that I had a demon inside of me. It didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like my head was about to spin 360 and another voice was about to come through me when Matthias stared into my soul. It didn't feel like that texture, but it definitely felt like, where's my vitality gone?
Yeah,
and what is actually happening? Now, this is when it gets real witchy and crazy and all the things.
We are ready.
So we're sitting in his beautiful suite in this lovely hotel, which originally was the Prince's Palace or the King's Palace at the base of the Great Pyramid. It's stunning. It was beautiful. It's called Mena House in Egypt. And we're in Matthias's room and I'm like, okay, help me with my demons, Matthias. And so he put 2 chairs opposite each other and there was 2 apples on top of the chairs. And the day before we went to the market and he said, you need to get laurel leaves, dried rose and frankincense. So I'm out on my little mission. I go to the market and I'm like, hello, sir. Can I get a bag of that and a bag of that and a little bit of this? I'm about to exercise my demons. And I take them back to the hotel room. I got them ready to go. He runs a bath for me and he pours all of the laurel leaves and the rose and the frankincense into this bath water. The frankincense was burning for the smoke and then the laurel leaves and the rose petals were in the bath. And then we came and sat down on the chairs.
Is it just you and him, or is Reggie there
me,
too?
him, and then Reggie is sitting to the right in a witness chair.
And just Reggie is your
my best friend,
ride or die, best friend,
yeah.
ceremony sister, co-founder.
Yeah, co-founder of the women's school that we have. And so she's there. I trust her with my life. She's there in the space. And Matthias grabs some salt, and he's sitting on the chair, and he starts sprinkling the salt around my chair, around me. Does it 4 times. And it's on the hotel floor. I'm like, we've been there for like 20 minutes. And all of a sudden there's salt everywhere. I'm like, welcome Matthias to the building. And he sits there and he's holding the apple and I'm holding the apple. And I'm thinking, I don't know what's about to happen. What's about to come out of me? And now when Matthias starts channeling, you can immediately see it in his eyes. His eyes change color. Like, not change color, but there's like, it just goes more like black. Like his pupil gets really big and his demeanor shifts. When he's with me and it's just me and Matthias and Blue and Reggie, it's playful, silly, giggling. And
yeah, you guys like 3 little kids.
It's so silly.
We're
literally like little children. And when Matthias is channeling, it's not like that. It's like, and he's like making these sounds and he looks and he's just literally scanning me. And he's not looking at me. He's looking through me. He's like this. And his eye like moves like this. Who are you? And I'm sitting there like, listen, I watched far too many horror films, yo. Like, you want my head to spin? Like, you want me to say some crazy shit? You want me to projectile vomit on you? It ain't gonna happen. Like, it's just not that's not where I'm at right now. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm Blue. Who are you? I was like, I'm Blue. Who are you? Well, originally my birth name is Charlotte. He goes, Blue, I need you to tell me exactly what first comes to mind. And just say it without thinking. Don't come from the mind. Just say it, like whatever it is that comes forward, say it just intuitively. Who are you? Now this goes on for about 45 minutes. Whoa. Not who are you question, but many different questions. Like, and I'm like, well, I'm Charlotte. It's my birth name. Who is Charlotte? Me. What do you want? Be free. What does it mean to be free? And he would like keep repeating these questions. And it got to the point because I was so conscious that Reggie was sitting in the room and how long this process was taking and how I was starting to get a little bit like sassy with it because I was like, I don't know what you're doing, bro. Like, this isn't working, you know? And this all hype around this ceremony. And eventually, I can't remember exactly what it was that happened, but eventually he got in with a certain question that got enough information to become my subconscious mind. And because I kept saying, my name's Charlotte and I want to be free, but I'm Blue. And I was kind of oscillating back and forth between Charlotte and Blue when he kept asking me who I was. And he said, you can't lie to me because I am your subconscious mind. You're thinking about your answer because you're defending a deeper truth that's going on inside of you. And he started piercing. His words were so convincing and so true. And he said, Blue is a concept. Charlotte is the source of who you are. You became Blue and neglected Charlotte. You haven't checked in with her once, and you've projected out into the world beauty, love, and unity, but you have failed to give it to Charlotte. You have created a fragmentation in your soul, which has created a gap in your back that has allowed you to be receptive to energies latching on because you're not solid in your identity. Your source of your power is Charlotte. the concept of what you offer to the world is blue, and you birthed blue as a protected mechanism to Charlotte so that she doesn't have to receive the projections of the world when you grow your platform. Charlotte needs your love, and it's time to stop neglecting her, because your field is weak because you've neglected a part of your soul. And I was like, oh! And I just had this flash vision of Charlotte, this like 9-year-old Charlotte, sitting in the corner in the fetal position weeping because I had neglected her. And it opened up something so deep inside of me that I cried deeper than I think I've cried maybe twice in my life that deep. And I was like wailing. And then after like the really deep process, he goes, "Who are you?" I was like, "I'm Charlotte." Who is blue? Blue is a concept. Beauty, love, and unity. She is my mission, but she is not who I am. What does Charlotte want? Charlotte means, the word name Charlotte means to be free. Charlotte wants to be free from the neglect. And the reason why my vitality was running so dry, the reason why I was losing all of my vitality, was because my source was coming from blue, and blue is just a concept. Now, I had never thought about this. I just changed my name overnight. It was like, I'm blue now. And I never really fully asked Charlotte, what do you need? Charlotte's the artist. Charlotte's not a podcaster. Now, it's beautiful. I am a podcaster too. But it's from a place of not neglect. It's from a place of wholeness. I can podcast and make art and be the first one on the dance floor and to be silly and to play with my eternal child from a place of wholeness, not from a place of neglect. And so at the end, when he said, "Who are you?" I am Charlotte. I said, "Okay, Charlotte, now it's time to bite the apple that I was holding the entire time."
Was he holding an apple too?
He was holding an apple as well.
Okay.
I took a bite of the apple. He said, "Welcome home." And I was like, crying. The most gangster thing Reggie's ever done. She gets up. She hasn't said anything this entire time. She walks over. She looks at me dead in the eye. She grabs the apple out of my hand, takes a bite of it, chews it, and she goes, "This is for Charlotte. I love you, and I'm here with you forever." And I was like, It goes, Matisse goes, "It's now time for you to take your ritual bath." It walked me over to the bathtub. He said, "When you get in this bath," he sang in another language. I think it was Atlantean, but I think it was also just intuitive singing into the bath water. He said, "I want you to bathe and rub the laurel leaves over your body and over your skin and bring Charlotte home." And sing to her. Sing a song to her that intuitively comes to you, and scrub every part of your body. Bathe yourself, baptize yourself, and return to wholeness. He left the room. Like, I got in the bath. I scrubbed myself and I was singing to her, and all of a sudden I was in the bath as I was a kid playing, and and it was like and all this joy, all this play, all this life came back to me. I came out of the bath and I was embraced by a hug by Matthias and Reggie, and they hugged me and they loved me, and and if you know anything about Matthias, he has a hard time with intimacy. And we're really softening him up. Me and Reggie are really softening him up. He's softened so much since we met him. And he fully was in the love with us. And I just felt like a resurrection had happened, like a resurrection of my soul. And I think that I never really saw what happens when you just give yourself another name overnight. And I am blue, and I still get called blue, and I will be referred to by blue. I think that I shared this on my podcast, I was a resurrection of Charlotte, and so everyone's calling me Charlotte. A lot of people are calling me Charlotte again. I go by the name of blue. I love the name of blue, and also simultaneously, blue is a recognition that to be outward facing, to have hundreds of thousands of people projecting their consciousness onto you, to think or to create an idea of who I am and that energy in my field of a sensitive being, blue is an opportunity to deliver a message in a way of empowering people into their own version of beauty, love, and unity, while in the same breath, Charlotte is right here the whole time. She's sitting here with me the whole time. I woke up the next day and I was back. My face was back. I was like, the vitality was back. And when the group arrived for the Egypt trip, people were like, wow, you look amazing. You're so radiant. Yes. And I was like, it's so funny you're saying that, because I tell you, 4 days ago, I didn't even recognize myself when I looked in the mirror. I didn't even see myself anymore. I was like, what happened to me? I don't know what happened. So this was literally 4 days in to being in Egypt. So when you say to me, like, how was your Egypt trip, or give me some nuggets, that was before our week together. That was right. And everyone was like, oh, you look so radiant. And I'm like, I wouldn't even be able to put it into words even if I tried right now. And this is me integrating it in real time. And there was one other final thing that was so funny. Matthias's friend came over, and the apple that Matthias had been holding, he walked in and just was like, I'm like eating the other apple. And Matthias is like, oh, we did an exorcism with that apple. Don't worry about it. It's cool though. Like you just like enjoy that. And he was like, a what? And like super naive to like the crazy shit that had just happened.
But do you think anything was in the apple? Like, was he using the other one?
Matthias was holding it, and he was super not worried about it.
Okay,
like, he was like, because it wasn't me that was that. It was more so to create the mirror of my subconscious mind. So he was a mirror image of me. But the apple that he was holding was more so the mirror reflection, as opposed to me holding it. And then that was for me to integrate in my body Charlotte again, to bring her back in.
I love that. Instead of like the body and blood of Christ, you're eating the body and blood of yourself. You're reintegrating Charlotte into this vessel.
Yeah. And bringing her home. And
bringing that artist that is Charlotte
ever
home.
Since then, ever since the Egypt trip, I've gone 1000% into being an artist again. The original point from our original part of this podcast, where I mentioned like art was the thing that brought me home. I've come back full circle, and as I enter into my progressed moon in Scorpio, it's not ascendant moon, it's progressed moon.
Yeah,
progressed moon. As I enter into the progressed moon of Scorpio in my home house of Scorpio, I have come home. I am home now. And for the next 2.5 years, I am here to come back to what was my original print of what I was doing when I was 5 years old, making art. I've always been an artist, and I've gone on a really wild journey, a necessary journey, a beautiful journey. The podcast was real. There was nothing fake about what I created with the podcast. That was very authentically real to me. But this is more of the subtle energetics behind the scenes of a consistency and a longevity, so that as my platform continues to build and grow and there's more people, I am like the great grandfather oak tree, where my roots are so deep in the earth, when the wind blows I don't get uprooted. I just shake maybe a little bit, but I'm staying right here. That was the integration of the wholeness of my essence. And I don't think that anybody I know would have been able to reflect back to me the way that Matthias did, the way that he sees. I trust that man with my life. I trust his channel with my life. And I don't say that very often unless I truly mean it. And there's things that he does that I don't fully understand, but I trust him. And that's what's built the friendship and the relationship. But when I say to you, those nectars and those places where I return home to myself, that's the kind of level that I'm playing at here. Because of the discernment, if not this, nothing. And this is what happens behind the scenes, so that when I show up and I've got this vibrancy and I have this power in my voice, yes, it's been a part of my dharma, but it has been earned to face off with myself over and over and over again and let an old part of myself die. When Lily dropped me off at the airport, she said to me, I can't wait to meet the version of you that comes back from this trip. Because she knows that I'm not going to come back the same person. You don't step in the same river twice. So that was a part of the experience that happened before I saw you.
Wow.
It's been a journey.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like this has been all so rich and so beautiful. And thank you for giving us a window into such a profound and intimate healing experience. And I'm sure there's some vulnerability inside of that. So I just want to really
so much vulnerability. I feel like I'm sitting here naked on this podcast.
Yeah, I could imagine. I want to celebrate you for trusting me and trusting this to share that. And I want to just reflect back to you that all of that sounded so beautiful, and through my eyes, normal and
thank you.
yes, and like yes, you've earned that radiance, right? And I want to celebrate even the part of you that was vulnerable enough to open up that portal and to let that energy in. That's so much trust, it's so much love, it's so much openness. And yes, now you can be that oak tree with both of you integrated and with these protection tools, right, that are going to allow you to spread your beauty and love and unity from a place of Charlotte, knowing that she is protected, to bring that medicine to the earth. So why isn't everyone dancing more? Why isn't everyone making more art? What's keeping us from celebrating that little version of ourselves inside?
Ultimately, I can't speak on behalf of everybody. It's going to be different for everybody's experience. But I think that our systems are flawed, and what we have deemed as success is so far away from it. And we believe collectively that to have more flash cars or more attractive partner or to be successful through our money in our bank account, and it is just a constant chase of consumerism and hierarchy and one-upping the next person, and we're missing the point. To be a successful person, in my eyes and in my feeling, is how regulated your nervous system is, how safe does someone feel in your presence, and how much did you laugh today. And I said this on the last podcast, but I just truly mean it. And that looks like dancing in the morning. I am a happier, better, more loving, better friend, better partner, better student, better teacher when I have danced.
Yes.
In shamanic traditions, they ask you if you've lost your way, lost your purpose, lost your passion for life. When was the last time you danced? Why isn't everybody dancing? Because a lot of people are so connected to how it looks from the outside in that we've disconnected ourselves from what our 5-year-old self was doing, which was recognizing when the music is good and it's moving us, let it move us. Let it move our bodies. Let it move our souls. Let it uncrack the back. Let it open the lungs. Let it move the tendons and the ligaments and the muscles. May it open up and oxygenate our body so chi, life force, energy can flow through again, because our movement is our prayer and our prayer is felt by the world. Why are we not dancing? There is a song in Spanish that I love to sing, and in Spanish it's como no voy a cantar si tengo todo para cantar, si tengo luna, si tengo sol, si tengo estrella, si tengo amor. Why would I not sing when I have everything to sing for? When I have the sun, when I have the stars, when I have the moon, when I have love. Why would I not dance when I have everything to dance for? When I have the sun, when I have the stars, when I have the moon, and when I have love. It is my prayer. It is my offering. It is my contribution. My vibrational state is my contribution to the collective. Thank you, Peter Crone, for that quote. Really, if you think that you can't make a difference because you're just one person, dance to the walls, dance to the floor, offer your dance up as a prayer, offer your dance up to your 5-year-old self, offer your voice to the cosmos, offer your voice to the future version of who you are, offer your voice to your children so that you can be a living example of an adult that never lost their way. A creative adult is the child that survived. What would it look like if the mothers that are birthing the next generation are the ones that allowed their child to survive so that they can be a living embodiment of an elder that never got lost?
An elder that never lost their child.
Why is everybody not dancing? Why is everybody not merging life as art and art as life? Because it is. And may we remember, so that we can actually leave this place to be a little bit more beautiful for our children and our children's children, for as long as humans are allowed to be here on this incredible, incredible planet.
And singing and dancing and making art is free. You can sing right now, you can dance right now, you can draw right now. And you can create that frequency of heaven. You can turn your whole life into art through those things available to everyone right here, right now. And you did such a beautiful job when we were in Egypt creating song circles and making everyone feel welcome and playing guitar and singing in a way that invited everyone in to sing their note and their harmony and create this beautiful orchestra of angelic voices raising the frequency of certainly the people there and possibly even the planet inside of the throat chakra, inside of these ancient vibration tools. These healing temples to sound and vibration. And so thank you for honoring Charlotte. Thank you for your commitment to making your life a work of art. Thank you for remembering to not let our children die. Thank you for the impeccable truth and beauty that you lead your life with, and in so doing, liberating all of us and empowering all of us to believe that we can step into an even more integral and even more beautiful and even more loving version of ourselves. The world is better because you exist. I am better because you exist. And I am so fucking grateful for our friendship. And I cannot wait to make magic with you until we are Marge's age. And I don't know what my archetype is, but until we are old ladies at 130, just shaking it, singing it, dancing it, and doing crazy wishy rituals in the woods together.
I see it, baby. Let's go.
I love you. So I'm quite sure people are deeply in love with you. Where would you like to send people? Where can they learn more about Charlotte and Blue and Charlotte?
I'm very active on Instagram. I have a Leo moon and I like to do the sacred shimmy on the gram stories. So you can find me daily over there on at BLU, Blue of Earth. And then on there, my link in my bio is give you access to my newsletter. And that's just basically my journal that I send out once a week. And I do community calls. I'm also the founder of Fluorescence Mystery School with my partner, my business partner, but also sister and life partner, Reggie Riverbear. And that's all of the information is the link in my bio. And then my website is blueofearth.com, www.bluofearth.com.
Thanks for the www.
Huh?
Thanks for the www.
Yeah, just so you know.
World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web is where you'll find me. And then also on there, you can go to YouTube and find the Deja Blue podcast. I have 123 episodes. I have done a lot of work on that. That is like my heart and soul. This is just another extension of the vulnerability, the rawness, the storytelling, the majestic humans that I've brought on and the conversations that I've had. You've been a guest on my podcast. So that is a lot of where the stories have continued, and you can just go on a whole journey from episode 1, which is my story of how I became who I am today, or at that point 3 years ago, and then just interviewed people that have been instrumental to the evolution of my path, and incredible teachers and wisdom keepers and storytellers. So there's that. And then I'm currently working on a tarot deck, which is going to be available next year because it's a big project that I'm working on right now.
And where do you know where we would be able to find that? Like, because I imagine people will be listening to this a year from now when it's out. So where would one find that once it's out? Do we know
it's all going to be on my website,
okay,
blueofearth.com.
Everything you just mentioned.
I mean, I'm going to be like the biggest advocate of this deck. Like, there's not going to be a single podcast that I won't do that I will do that will have my deck just sitting here on my lap.
Like your baby.
Just like,
well, it'll be Lily, your dog,
everywhere.
And the deck.
Yeah, it will be everywhere. Just
you know what you should do is get like an outfit for Lily that has the deck on it.
Yeah,
so she can wear it as an outfit.
100%.
And then you can just have Lily on your lap and she'll be displaying all of the art.
I'm going to be so annoying with the product placement.
Now you know what I'm getting you for your birthday.
We're going to have a big launch party. I mean, it's going to be a whole thing.
Oh, I'm so excited.
So that's going to be the deck is our deadline with the publisher has to be complete by June, and then it takes another 6 months after that for them to create it and then get it all the shipment centers and everything ready to go. But that will be the most intricate, meticulous, time consuming, devotional creation I've made up until this point, and I cannot wait to share it.
And I just want to celebrate you. I mean, talk about a unity of masculine and feminine. Like, you're creating so much structure. I see you in the studio, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, like really creating boundaries around this sacred space so that the feminine can flow through, so this inspiration can flow through. And I've gotten the amazing fortune of having a sneak peek at what you and your amazing artistic partner are creating together. And it is so beautiful. So get ready, world. Oh, I love you. Thank you for being my first repeat guest. Thank you for being so amazing. I love you.
Oh, I love you so much. Thank you so much for creating such an easy space for your guests to really tap in and to allow the cameras to completely melt, and for it just to be an opportunity to have an uninterrupted, however long conversation with you. The vibrancy, the intention, the love, the care, the meticulousness, the integrated masculine and the feminine that allows this space to really be filled with life. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be your first reoccurring guest, and maybe I'll come back again at some point with more stories to tell.
Amen. Well, sweet friends, if you have enjoyed this as much as I have, if you have fallen so deeply in love with this human, if you have received some medicine through this media, as Blue likes to say, then the best thing you could do is to share it with someone who you think would get something out of this. We are doing this so that we can help to spread these messages out into the world. So if you loved it, you could screenshot it and then tag both of us. I'm at Ziva Meditation and she is at Blue of Earth, and let us know what you thought in the comments. It's always fun to interact and be like, oh, that apple thing was crazy, but this was amazing. Or I'm going to go make art today. And let us know what art you create. Let us know when and how you share it. We love you. And I will see you next week on Why Isn't Everyone Doing This?